We're ready, Your Worship.
All right, good. Council, I'd like to start this Committee of the Whole meeting of October 13th, 2022. This is the last Committee of the Whole meeting for this council in this term. So I want to say thank you to all of you for your service to the community. I want to start by adopting the agenda, and I want to amend it by swapping the order of 9A and 9B to accommodate staff. So we can adopt the agenda as amended. Someone make that motion. Councillor Ryan, second by Councillor Gillette. All in favor? Motion carried. Adoption of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting for September 8th, 2022. Councillor Ryan, seconded by Councillor Gillette. All in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to just move on. Announcements from the mayor. Just going to repeat what I had said beginning of the week. So we have one last day to vote. So Saturday is the general election day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Revelstoke Community Center. Just encourage the community to get out and vote. All right, let's move on to item 9B, ICE allocation policy report. So do we have a presentation on that, please? Mr. Nato.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in front of you, you have a draft policy. The city doesn't have a formal policy in place. So in conversations with a couple of the community members, we reviewed a few ICE allocation policies from other municipalities and found that our existing allocation of ICE process is quite similar to theirs. So what you have in front of you today is basically our process, but formalized. So we did include a little bit of verbiage in there about gender equity, which was a concern raised by Councillor Rind. So I've done my best to incorporate some wording in terms of how we're going to allocate ICE to women specifically, and how that works with our ICE allocation policy. I met with all the user groups and they've reviewed the policy and provided some feedback. No concerns were raised, and I'm hoping we can have something formal. Just wondering if council has any feedback, comments, or concerns, questions?
Councillor Ryan?
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Donato. I'm really happy to see this come forward, and great that there's the addition of the gender equity clause. I guess I just have one question around, like, if there were issues going forward. I'm just trying to organize my thoughts. It seems like this is a great thing to have in place because it can always be revised if necessary, but now it's formalized, people can look at it. And then if going forward there were any issues, is this something that the next council could just say, you know, refer to this policy and update it if need be?
Yes, the policy can be updated at any time.
Okay. And yeah, I think it looks great. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm quite pleased with this. Thank you, Mr. Nato. You've done great work, and having this policy come forward, I think it's a great thing. Do you need anything from us in way of a motion for this? Well, we can't make motions, so pardon me for that.
Nope.
Oh, Councillor Palmer, did you have a question?
Yeah, did you say, sorry, Mayor Sulz, did you say we can't make motions?
That's what I had said, because this is going to, we can make a motion for it to go to
Council.
council.
That's what I was going to suggest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Sorry.
suggest as well. Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Palmer. All right, so the motion for this policy as is to go to council. Any further questions or concerns? Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Worship. I think this is a great, well thought out policy, and thank you, Ms. Donato, about getting something like this formalized. I'm wondering if there are any other allocation processes or informal processes that would also benefit from a formalized policy like this. that this could be a template, or is this completely isolate, just related to the ICE allocation and not really anything else?
Okay, Mr. Moore?
The way it's written, it's strictly for the ICE allocation, but we could definitely look at something for our field bookings and our rec facilities as well. Similar, we have established policies and processes in place that have worked well for years, but nothing formal. So it's probably best at some point in time that we do formalize them. So I'll probably be working towards doing that with the rec facilities and the fields.
Awesome.
All right, any other comments on the motion on the table? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Donato. Appreciate your time and your work on that. Moving on to status update, major projects and files. We have a presentation on that. Mr. Black?
Thank you, Worship. There's no presentation, and I hope that the rest of the department managers are okay with me taking the lead on this. We prepared this document a few months ago, so some of the projects are out of date, but prior to arrival of the current CAO, Mr. Parliament, we as staff felt that council might not be completely aware of all of the things that were underway, and as a tool to provide after the election some guidance to the future council on the things that are underway and to keep the momentum going for those projects. And so brief project update for the city as a whole for your reference and for the next council's reference. And that's it. I'm
We're all going like, okay, we're ready.
There's a lot of projects underway. That's the fun part.
Thank you, Mayor Sulz. So yeah, and thank you to Mr. Black for the overview. I think this is the kind of thing that we're wanting on an ongoing basis where we're at with various projects. The one question I have is on the transportation master plan. You have at 50%. I believe that's much more than 50%, is it not?
Correct. Through your worship to Councillor Palmer, yes. As stated, these lists are at this point roughly a month and a half behind where we are today. So some of these projects are further on, and transportation master plan is one of those. A near final draft is in place and almost ready for distribution, which we hope to do to senior staff and the participants in the community programs for final review. And we hope to take this to council as a item for the next committee of the whole. And then pending satisfactory assuming council approves the draft, then we'll come back with finalizing that the meeting immediately following. And that's the same with the water master plan too. I have a final draft on my table right now, which is almost ready to come back for council's consideration and adoption. And these two documents will then lead towards an update to the DCCs in the next year.
So yeah, just further to that. So I'm just looking at the list a little bit more. So I see that it is a bit out of date. It would be good to have that with current stuff. So I'm looking at things like paving, patching, and Woodenhead Park. I won't open up a can of worms right now though on those, but yeah, it'd be good to have that.
Well, I'm going to ask, can you just update us on the washroom facility at Woodenhead Park? Are we any closer to seeing a build start on that, Mr. Black?
To your worship, that project has been delayed as the contractor that was awarded the work has suffered through some current difficulties, and delivery of the wash or the shower room at Williamson Lake is still not complete. Also, as the driving force for the washroom at Woodenhead Park was the closure of most of the restaurant facilities and washrooms adjacent to the highway, as that we no longer carry that cross. Staff and the tourism group are reconsidering the need for this facility, and we may come back to council and reallocate those funds for another project if it's deemed through staff, council, and tourism, the community and economic development group, that the facility is no longer needed, then we will reallocate those funds.
All right, thank you for that update. Any other comments, questions, Councilor Brooks?
Through the chair, I was just wondering if Mr. Black had an update on the library project.
Unfortunately, I do not. I may be able to, before the end of this session, I'll get some update from our building inspectors. I believe that we're close. I don't know that there's some financial difficulties in place with that project too.
All right, Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, I've noted that as well. I was kind of assuming it's the same contractor, I believe, as those others, so I think it's probably all the same heat.
Great. All right. Any other questions on the projects that are in front of us? I appreciate the work being done. Councilor Ron.
Yeah, this isn't on the list, but I was wondering if corporate services could maybe just make any kind of comment around the training that's planned for the new council, and if that's a project that's going on the list, or there's a plan already, or anything around that.
Ms. Floyd.
Sorry about that. Through Councillor Rind, I believe that the CAO and myself and whoever the incumbent mayor are going to plan a training session, including strategic planning coming out of Councillor Palmer's previously mentioned recommendation, probably early in the term to get everything established and on the right foot.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I guess this isn't really necessarily something that needs to be discussed at committee of the whole, but I do feel that there was a lot that was missed when we were elected, and there's a lot of room for improvement beyond just like one strategic session. And I don't know if that conversation is happening, or if there's if you would be seeking input from previous councilors or anything like that, but I would be curious to know what that does look like, because it's really important.
Good. All right. Appreciate that. Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, through the chair. So one last act before you depart this term. So those that are not returning, if you could please let me know exactly what you think should be talked about at the new orientation session. Based on your 4 years experience, I would be thrilled to see that, because we are putting together a custom orientation, and we want to make sure we don't repeat some of the things that were missed 4 years ago. So your input for those that aren't running again is valuable for the new council. So please just shoot me an email and say, you know, we need to talk about this, we need to talk about that. Let's emphasize this, and that will help us structure that orientation. Thank you.
Councilor Shaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. When I looked through this overview, snapshot of some of the different projects from all the various departments' work plans, it's trying to think of the right words. I've talked a lot in the past about living documents and how they're different from a static report. So I think we've all seen how out of date this is. And I can only imagine how much work went in to try and create this, which is now already out of date. Where a living document is more integrated with the work itself, so that as the work is done and there's an update put in, it updates the report automatically.
Right.
So then that way, as this work is getting completed and updated, that information could go to top Revelstoke project pages to make sure that residents are up to date, but then also feed into an ongoing living document that council can see. So as the next council gets trained and up to date on all of these various projects that are going on, the work plans that they feed into, the budget implications, and the funding models for each of those projects, because it gets quite complicated to understand how much of this is grant funded, how much of this is taxpayer dollars, and something that we need to be budgeting for, to be able to follow along with that progress in a functional way, both as they get trained, but then also over the 4-year term. So that way, rolling into the end of the next term, it's not a static report, it's just an ongoing living document that residents can see, council can see, and we can have that transparency of where we're at when we have so many projects moving very quickly.
Good point. Thank you. Any other comments, questions on the projects ahead of us? Seeing none? Thank you. Oh, Mr. Black, sorry.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Just a final update to Councillor Brookhill, or Councillor Ryan, I don't remember which, but the general contractor, according to our building folks, is ready or very close to be getting finals for the library project. So that's good news.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to departmental updates. So Parks, Rec and Culture quarterly report. Ms. Donato.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report covers the months of July, August, and September. So you'll notice we had quite a few events taking place in our park spaces after a 2-year hiatus with COVID. So that was really good to see all these events back up and running. A lot of programming activities and a lot of requests to extend the programming activities well into the summer months. We had about 187 kids participate in our skate camp this year, and we ran 8 weeks of camp versus the 4 to 5 weeks we typically run. And we had over 500 participants participate in our slow pitch league this summer. Yeah, so lots going on and lots of happy faces.
Awesome. Good. Thank you for that. Any comments or questions from council? Councilor Charlotte.
I'm curious about with the public art installation of the Isabel Corsier statue, which looks fantastic. I haven't noticed a plaque or any information on site that explains what the statue is about to passerbys. I'm not sure if there's anything planned.
Yes, there is. The Arts Revelstoke crew is working on a plaque that will likely be installed in the planter box right next to the Isabel Corsier statue, which will probably happen in the spring.
Okay.
Good. Awesome. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Palmer.
Thank you through the mayor. Thank you, Lori, for the report. I've noticed it looks like an uptake on Facebook on posts of things that the recreation is doing, and I certainly appreciate that. I try and share them when I see them. So, for example, there was one yesterday on for people that are mobility challenge. So I note that there's a bit more present. So appreciate that as well, and it's kind of interesting to see all the things you're doing. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
This isn't about parks, but I just thought about it. It goes back to the other major projects report. I noticed that the org review is in there, but was curious what the next steps are and when that's going to be released.
Mr. Parliament, comment.
Yes, well, through the chair, I placed that item on the report. All it requires is a formal adoption from council. The executive summary is 2 pages. There's 12 recommendations. A lot of the bulk of the report is data. There's a lot of numbers. There's lots of charts. All it's required is for council to formally adopt the report. The new council will be doing that. I've seen it. There's nothing outstanding that requires immediate attention. A lot of it has to do with policies. A lot of it has to do with improving communications and getting better information from finance and the presentation of the budget, etc. So as soon as the election's over, one of the first things the new council will be doing is having a look at that and then hopefully just formally adopting it. And then we can work on the recommendations, which will share with the public.
Any further follow-up?
Yeah, so the report itself is not actually going to be shared?
Oh, the report can be shared, absolutely. I'm just saying that the executive takes 64 pages and condenses it into 2 pages.
Oh, yeah.
I think what would be easiest is just to share the executive summary. The other pages is a lot of data that's a public document and that can be shared as well. But in terms of the actual formal adoption of the entire document, council will adopt the whole thing. What should be shared immediately is just the executive summary of the 12 recommendations. It's just a 2-pager.
Okay, I don't know why we wouldn't just share the whole thing, but anyways, that's just
Yeah.
not gonna be my problem anyways, so.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, that's pretty much it. Thank you, Mr. Nato. Appreciate it. Oh, Councillor Elliott. Yeah,
Thank you. I've just a couple of curious points for me. The golf course, was it a good year, good summer for them? Lori?
Mr. Nato, do you have information on that?
Through your worship, I haven't received their annual report yet. I think the course closed this weekend, or this is the last week. So I would imagine in the next month, I'll hear from them and have an update.
Yeah, they had a positive year last year despite the COVID things, so they were happy with that. I would think it carried on, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would assume it did. It was definitely challenging trying to get tee times this year. So I would imagine that it was another good year for them.
Great. And then the other issue, maybe concern, is that the revenue that's generated at Williamson's Lake from the concession and running the campground, do you know how much it garnered this year?
Not yet. Their year end wrapped up last weekend. So within the next 4 to 6 weeks, I'll probably have a report from them as well, indicating their revenue. And then the city typically takes 15% of the revenue.
Yeah. So in the last couple of years, has that amounted to much, or how significant is it?
It's approximately about 30,000.
Fair enough. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So that basically is the end of our meeting. So I'm going to ask for termination. Councillor Ryan in true fashion, Councillor Charlotte. All those in favor, motion